Right, hello everyone. Good morning or good evening. My name is Ricardo, and welcome to this Tech Talk. Where we will be talking about the new iOS feature called 3D Touch. Today, joining me is Foke Sambert. Foke, how you doing? Are you there?
Yes, I'm there.
Uh, so yeah, we're gonna be talking about 3D Touch. This is a new feature that actually is gonna be available in the new Titanium 5.1 that is should be coming out this week. Um, and the feature actually has a couple different details, technical details that we're going to be discussing. For example, there's a concept of force touch versus 3D touch, and there's a pick and pop and home screen quick actions and some other features that allow for easier multitasking and some features that have to do also with photos and wallpapers. This is all iOS 9, so this is nothing that has to do with Android. But if you have an iOS 9 device, and actually this only works on iPhone, it doesn't work on iPad, then you should be able to test this out. Fogg is going to be presenting these details, and he's also going to be showing us a sample app that he's built that we later are gonna be sharing with you, so you can play with it as well. So without much more to say, I'm gonna transfer control over to Foke. So you are on.
Okay, so let me share my screen. And I've connected my phone and presenting it here on QuickTime. So we can also see the 3D touch capabilities here, because one thing to know about the 3D touch is that it is not supported in iOS Simulator at the moment. So in order to test this and to test a sample app, you will need to have an iPhone 6 or 6 Plus, 6S Plus. So maybe before we dive into the sample app, it's good to talk a little about the Force Touch and 3D Touch terms that you see at different places at the Apple website and in our own documentation, because it can be quite confusing what exactly the difference is between those two different names. And I actually was confused myself, so I dived into it, and I found out that Force Touch is actually two different techniques, and 3D Touch is another technique. So the Force Touch technique was introduced with the Apple Watch. And from a developer standpoint, the only thing that you can do with it is you can set a context menu that should appear when Force Touch is applied to the screen. And there are no technical details on how Force Touch has been implemented on the Apple Watch, but there is rumors that it actually doesn't measure any force, but instead it measures the surface of your finger on the Apple Watch, because as you press it harder, the surface will increase, and so it will trigger a Force Touch event. The new trackpads also have Force Touch, but they have 4 sensors under the trackpad that actually measure the force. So on the macOS X APIs, you can get the actual force as a floating point number to do stuff with that. So you can do different actions with different measure of force applied. Then the 3D Touch, introduced with the iPhone 6s, is again another technique where these force sensors are part of the actual screen. And it's not just 4 sensors under the screen, but the whole screen is one big force sensor. And just like with Force Touch on the Mac, on the trackpads, you can get the exact force from applied to the screen. So it's 2 different terms for 3 different techniques, and I guess that over time we'll see that 3D Touch will be the only term used, and that Apple will also use the technique now used for iPhone 6s in the trackpads and in the new Apple Watch. So Ricardo, do you have an Apple Watch already, by the way?
I don't.
Oh man, you need to get one.
Okay. I'll try.
Okay, because I'll tell you what kind of cool features you have with 3D Touch. The ones that you're probably most familiar with is Peek and Pop, which has 2 different states. You can press hard on any view that has Peek and Pop enabled for it, and it will show you a preview of the content that you're gonna get. And if you swipe up while you're pressing hard, it will show you some quick actions if there are any available. Then if you press even harder, you get the pop action, and in most occasions you will get the same result as in a single tap. So in a typical structure where you would have a list of items and you press hard on an item to peek, and then if you decide you want to open it, you pop, and you get to the same screen that you would get to by just doing a single tap on the item.
So wait. So when you mean item, that this is an icon on the screen, right? On the home screen?
The Peek and Pop can be added to any view inside the app. So
Inside
the other thing is the home screen quick actions. So that's what you get. Let me show you that on the phone. If you press hard, also on our sample app, you'll get the quick action menu. So this is
the quick actions.
Yeah, this is the home screen quick actions. And those can be defined in the info.plist, so in Titanium that's configured from the tapp.xml. So then they are static, and they will be there right after you've installed the app. And the other way is the dynamic quick actions, which you can define in runtime using our APIs.
But previously you were referring to Peek and Pop, and that is something inside the app.
Yeah, so let me show you Peek and Pop. So in the sample app, just press any item in the list and you get Peek. You can swipe up and it will show you some actions there. And if you press harder, it will pop to the details screen.
And
so that's Peek and Pop.
On the simulator, how do you, is this a simulator what you're showing?
No, this is my phone.
Oh, this is the device. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So there's no way to simulate this on the simulator.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that you can simulate in the simulator, and if you go to the README of the repository, you'll see that there's a link to a GitHub repository where you can get a service that you can install on your Mac and run it and pass the app ID, and then you can trigger the quick action on the home screen. So then you can test the home screen quick actions in the simulator. But to test Peek and Pop, you really need a device.
And then could you repeat the devices where this is available?
This is the iPhone 6s and the 6s Plus.
Okay, so no iPod Touch and no iPad.
Yeah, it's only on the iPhone 6s, and probably we'll see it on other devices as well.
Right.
So then there's some other 3D touch features that are less known maybe, and also not don't apply to our sample app. Anywhere in wherever you type text, so let's, for example, create a new message here. If I press hard on the keyboard, it will turn into a trackpad, so I can actually move my mouse around or the cursor around and make selections. So that's the other 3D touch feature that there is. And also when I press hard on the left edge of an app, it should, oh, there it is. It opens the multitasking view. So
that is just the same effect as double tapping on the button.
Well, the difference is that you can also, if you press really hard, just like we do with Pop, you get to the multitasking. But if you press lightly and then to the left, let me try that again. You can see that I don't use this one often. You go directly to the last app. So it's supposed to make it easier to navigate to the previous app, but as you probably also have seen in iOS 9, if you go to another app, it will show an arrow on the top left of the screen to go back to the previous app. And personally, I find that a lot more convenient than having to press exactly with the right force at the right spot to go through the previous app. And then finally, the last 3D touch feature is when you're shooting a live photo or using these wallpapers, these new live wallpapers, that you, by pressing them and applying different meshes of force, they will animate. So that's the 3D touch features that you have on the iPhone 6s. And the sample app and in Titanium 5.1, what we support now are the peek and pop and quick actions for the home screen. So what we will add in the next release is we will pass on the exact force that was applied to any touch event to our touch events. So whenever you have a click or single tap or double tap event, you will also get a floating point number that will tell you how much force was applied.
Right, so you can then apply your own gestures inside your app depending on the force.
Yeah, if you would use something like the Paint module, you would be able to change the length, the width of the line that you draw depending on the amount of force.
Yeah. Now the trackpad that multitask and the live photos, that's an operating system feature, right?
Yeah. You don't have to do anything to integrate that.
Okay.
And then the other thing is that we'll also be adding the Apple Pencil touch event properties. So if an Apple Pencil is used on the iPad Pro, then you would get the exact coordinates much more precise than with a normal touch event, and also the force applied on the pen, on the pencil. So those are to be expected in the next release.
Okay, I had a question about the trackpad feature. Could you go back to the email client?
Yeah.
So when you press hard on the and it turns into a trackpad, is that going to replace the magnifying glass that was like the iPhone already has?
The other way to do it is indeed just press in any unit text and then move it like this.
Oh, so both features are enabled.
Yeah, but this you can also use like in the Notes app to draw something quickly in a text message. So it's something that apps step into and can use.
I see. Okay, and then I know you mentioned something offline about how this is available to Titanium users as far as Studio and CLI.
Yeah, the thing is, we're working on a new version of the Studio dashboard to include beta and RC samples as well, because Titanium 5.1 is still in a release candidate at the moment. We will release it today or tomorrow, but we don't want to have any samples in the dashboard that people are not able to use for with their GAs. So we're doing a new version of the dashboard where we actually filter that and see if you have those RC versions and then show those samples. But at the moment, this sample app is not included at the dashboard yet. So you can just clone the GitHub repository. But the one thing that you need to do if you are using the AppC CLI is that you need to import it or register it to the platform. And you can do that in Studio, of course, but if you're on the CLI, the README has the exact CLI commands to register to the platform without enabling the test services.
And that also means that you will have to manually download and install the Bleeding Edge SDK, right? Yeah,
you can just go to the Q&A, to the announcements categories where we announced the 5.1 beta and RC candidates. So you can get the links there to download them. But as we said, today or tomorrow we'll be releasing the GA. So.
Cool. So
let's dive in the app.
Yeah, could we dive into the code to see more examples of how this is implemented?
So first, let's take a look at how the static shortcut items or the static home screen quick actions are configured. And then the one thing that you immediately see is that in the APIs of Apple, it's not called home screen quick actions like it is called in the documentation for the user, but they're called application shortcut items. So I have no idea why they renamed that, but it's two different names. It's the same feature. So this is just exactly the configuration that you can also find in the reference guides from Apple. And instead of adding them to the info.plist list like you would do in the Xcode project, you add them here in the plist section of the tapp.xml. So you can have an array of shortcut items, and in our case, we just have one, and then use different keys to set an icon, a title, a subtitle, and then our item type, which has to be a unique key, so that you can identify in the app which shortcut item was used. And then you can have a custom payload. And this custom dictionary that you send along for a static item, it's probably not relevant because you already have the item and this won't change ever. But in the dynamic items, this is something that you use and something that we use in the sample app to know what picture detail page of which picture we need to open.
Okay, so what you're saying is that when you say static versus dynamic, what you mean is that you don't need to know the actions that you're going to be setting up before build. You can actually do it at runtime. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, the only difference with the static ones is that after you've installed the app, the static shortcut items are available right away. And the dynamic ones are not available until the user has run the app.
Exactly.
So you can use the APIs, yeah.
So can you go back to your home screen on the device and do the long press so we can see the equivalence of this one?
Yeah, so the static item we have here is the add picture. And as you can see in the code, I used built-in shortcut item. In this case, the shortcut icon type add. So that is the plus sign. I could also use a custom icon that has to be a so-called template icon, which is a grayscale icon. And in order to use these icons, they need to be in an image asset catalog. So we enabled asset catalogs in Titanium 5.0 for the launch images and app icons. And in 5.1, we now have the option to enable them for images, any other asset images that you have in your app as well. And this is an optional thing, so we have it enabled here. Use app thinning. So this will generate asset catalogs for all of the images that you have in your resource folder. And wherever you need to use them in your app, nothing will change. You can just use the path. Asset catalogs don't have any paths. They only have names. But what we actually do is, as we generate these asset catalogs, we use a hash of the image path as the name of the asset catalog. So when you use an image in an image view, we hash the path, and then we find the asset catalog that matches that same hash. The only thing you have to be aware of at the moment is something we need to fix, is that if you want to use this in a static shortcut item, you need to find out the hash of this icon file yourself. So as you can see here, this is the string here that I have. So how you do that is you just build the app once. You go to your iPhone, build iPhone folder, and here in my assets folder are all the asset catalogs. So I can see here that I want this shortcut item, and here can I see the assets of the hash of the asset catalog.
Which is a folder.
That's a bit of a hack at the moment, but we'll fix that in the next release.
Cool.
So for the dynamic ones, if we go to, let's see, the details controller. So this is the controller for when I'm viewing a single image in the app. So let's open one. Nah, that's not a nice one. Let's do this one. Cool. So when you open this one, let me take this one full screen. You'll see that I create an instance of application shortcuts. So you have to create an instance here, and that instance you use to add dynamic shortcuts. So it just takes a dictionary here, with the same keys basically from the tapp.xml, but without the whole prefix stuff. So you have an item type, unique, the title, subtitle, in our case, the time in which the picture was added to the app, the icon. So here we can actually use the path, so we don't have to do the whole hash thing, or a system-provided icon, and then the custom payload. And in this case, the custom payload is essential because we need to know for this details action which file name we showed at this moment. So whenever I go into a detail of a picture, it will create or update the dynamic shortcut details with the file name for this picture. So by doing so, when I go back to the home screen, I can always, so let's go to the back to the pictures or even console, and then say open last picture.
We can
switch to the right tab.
We can see the.
Yeah. Okay, good one. So let me do that again. So I open a picture, I go back to the list or even another tab, and then select the open last picture, and it will switch to the right tab and load the right picture. So how do I hook into this quick action? Well, if I go to pictures, which is the controller for the list of pictures, you will see that I have this event listener shortcut item click. And in this event, I get the item type. So I know if the action is to add a picture or to view the details of one of the pictures. I can use the user info to find the model ID for my model and then use that to open the details page. So it's pretty straightforward.
Mm-hmm. So I have a question. So you mentioned that when you do it, you're doing the creation of that menu dynamically. You need to launch the app at least once, so the operating system knows, or that at least so that routine runs. And when you have it on the tapp XML, then does that means that when you launch up you just rebooted the phone? Are those options already on your app?
Yeah, they're already in the app. Yeah, they'll remain there until you remove them. And if you go to the API tab, you'll see the different methods that you can use. So you can get a list of all the static shortcuts or all the dynamic ones. And you can check if one exists for a specific item type. Let me show that on the screen. You can get the details of a specific shortcut and remove one or remove all of the dynamic shortcuts. So these methods you can use to manipulate these and update these. So actually, when you go to the details controller, you'll see that before I add the shortcut, I remove any existing details shortcut. So you can see we remove all the details shortcuts. And also when we delete a picture, where it is. Oh, there it is, preview. So when we delete the picture, I get the details of the dynamic shortcut and then check if the user info happens to be of the model that we just deleted. Mm-hmm. So in that case, I remove the dynamic shortcut as well.
Okay, yeah. So there's a little bit of housekeeping that needs to happen there.
Yeah, and anywhere if you go to the sample app and you list them here, you go to the console, you'll see exactly what the payload is of those events. So as you can see, everything except for the icon, I get it here so I can verify if it's still up to date or if I need to update it. So I think that's pretty much it for the application shortcuts or the home screen quick actions. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about Peek and Pop.
Yep.
So you can add Peek and Pop to any view in your app. So it's right in the TI UI view has a preview context property. So all other views inherit that. So you can add it to any view. So in this case, this is a scroll view with image views. So we added the preview context to all of these image views. So they all have their own preview context. And in a preview context, you can see we create and we add it here to the image view. In a preview context, you have two different, let me look it up here. You have the preview, so that's the view that actually shows when you do peek. And you have the actions, and those are optional. You don't need to have actions. So those, they show when you
scroll a little bit.
Yeah, you need to press the one and then move it up, and then we'll have the quick actions.
So if you don't have actions, then when you did it the first time, do you have like an up arrow? That would not show, I guess, right? You go back
no,
to the...
that won't show. It will just show the preview. That's it. Yeah.
Got it.
And then the actions can be also a group. So in this case, I have one single action sent per email, and I have a group that is called delete. So if I do delete, it will show the other options in that group.
Cool.
So as you can see, I can do this in Alloy. You need Alloy 1.7.25. So if you're using the open source Titanium CLI, make sure you have that version. If you're using AppC CLI, it will come with the new version of AppC, the AppC CLI core package that we ship tomorrow. So if you don't have it already, you can just do it in Classic, of course, as well. But otherwise, you can do it here in XML. So there's one thing you need to be aware of when you implement Peek and Pop, and that's related to list views and table views. Because all other views, they have their own preview context. So for this list of thumbnails, each of these thumbnails have their own preview context. But when I use the top left icon in the sample app, it will switch to a list view. And a list view and a table view, they share the same preview context. So when I go to list, you will see that we test if force touch is supported, and you need to test that because otherwise you get exceptions and stuff. We create the preview context, and then we add the preview context to the list view, so not to the individual items. Now, of course, the peek that you want to show is unique for all of the items. So we have a peek event, and you probably only use this in the list view and table view, because here then you can update the preview to match the item. So you get the same properties that you have on the item click event in the list view. So you get the section index, the item index, and the optional item ID. So you can use that to look up information for that specific item, and then update the view with that information.
So essentially, what you're saying is that for the list views and table views, you reuse the same, context.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. So the effect is the same, but you need to update it as you need to listen to the peek event and then make sure the preview matches the item that is being peeked. And then in the pop event, of course, it's the same thing. You need to take the item ID so that you can open the right detail view.
And then that context by default is the topmost window, right? So even if you are in a cell within a table view, the preview context will be the topmost window. You don't have to do anything for that, right?
Yeah, it will just blur all of the app and just show that preview.
Got it.
It doesn't matter where it is; it will always show on top of your app.
That's pretty cool.
And let me show you the. If you go back to the preview, you see we have the on-peek event and the on-pop event. So if you go to the preview controller, you'll see that on peek we lock the payload, and on pop we open the details for the specific model. So it's always you need to take the payload for pop and peek and then update if you have a list. So that's an important difference to know if you're implementing it for the list view.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
One question: the on-peak and on-pop events, those events are of this new object, right? And those are not events that you put on the table view or list view, right?
No, they're events on the preview context. So for the list, you create the preview context. So in my case, I have a controller for that. So I have the preview controller, and all that the preview controller has is that preview context. So you create it by TIUI iOS dot create preview context, and then you add that object to the preview context property of the view or of the list view or table view, and then you add any listeners and the preview view on that preview context object.
Got it.
So indeed, you don't set the preview view on the list view, and you don't listen to the events on the list view itself. The context sits in between the view that you want to add it to and any events and properties that you need to set.
That is a very useful feature because it's not simply a context menu. It's actually something of more value. So
yeah, it can be anything. I mean, it can be a map or I don't know, a video. It can be anything.
And then so that preview context is acting on a row. You cannot place that on different items within a row, or can you?
No, you have for a list view and table view. You add it to the list view and table view.
Right. So you have so it's not like you can have multiple different previews per row. You know what I mean?
Well, you can, because you listen to the peak event, and then you can update the preview view. Yeah. So they don't need to be. In my case, for this sample, I just set the model on the preview controller, and then what happens is I update the text. So that's the title that is showing above the picture, and I update the image. But you could also just do anything you like. I mean, if for some item I want to show a map or whatever.
Yeah, what I was thinking was that you may have like this. Go back to the list view. So you may have besides that timestamp, you could have a button in the same row that says location and another one that says comments. And if you tap on the location, you get a preview of the map. And if you tap on the comments, you get a preview of the comments. Is that possible?
That's a good one. Let's see what we get if we do a peek on this one.
Because maybe if you get the source object that was tapped, then you can decide on which content to add.
Yeah, it looks like we don't get. You get a reference to the preview.
Well, you have the source.
A reference to the section, the item ID. But the source, the ID of the source is preview context. So it's also the preview context
itself. Yeah.
Yeah. That would actually be a nice feature request if we can change the source to the actual item that was tapped on.
If you have a complex set of rows, like on Facebook, that you have different items per row, you can inspect the item without having to actually click on it.
Yeah, good one. I'll create yet another ticket.
Yeah. All right, so let's see. Is there anything else you have as far as code? I think you cover pretty much everything, right?
It's pretty much everything. I will drop the GitHub repository links in the Crowdcast chat. And again, the samples are configured to use a GA, and that will be out today or tomorrow.
Cool. So I don't see. Let's give like 2 or 3 minutes in case anyone else have questions, but I don't see any question here. Just give it a couple of minutes. I know it's a lot of info, and it's all new. So I guess that people are eager to dive into the code and start playing with it. Again, just as a summary, you need to have an actual device running iOS 6, and it has to be an iPhone. You need to use, at least if you want to play with it today, you need to use the Bleeding Edge release candidate. You need to import the project. What else am I missing, if anything?
No, that's it.
Okay, there's a question. Can you still add event listeners on the views within the preview context? That's a good question.
Yeah, I guess you can, but the question, of course, is, do they fire?
Exactly.
I'll find it out in a bit. I'll test that.
Yeah, that's something that maybe
because if you touch anything, if you release, because of course to do a touch you need to release.
so you
first.
So if you release, you lose that view, right?
Yeah, unless you swipe up so that the actions show. But then if you tap on the preview again, the preview will close.
Yeah, so I guess that that is
I don't
not
think it will be a good user experience.
Yeah, it's not actionable because as soon as you move your finger, unless you have the options underneath, you lose the preview. So that's your answer.
Yeah. So it won't be very helpful.
Mhm.
But
All right.
I'll find out anyway.
Yeah, and that's something that maybe you can add to the README of the repo for the benefit of everyone. All right, so that's all we have for you today. Remember that we archive these talks and we upload them to AppU under the category of Tech Talks. So if you want to rewatch this, even when you have the code, so you can go over the explanations that Fokke just gave us, just know that all the talks, this one is going to be there probably today or tomorrow, but you also have access to the previous ones. So feel free to drop by AppU for a rewatch. There's questions coming in.
Hans is already answering that the preview view children are not supposed to receive touch events. But I never take that for an answer. I'm not supposed. I always want to find out. So thanks, Hans.
All right. Okay, cool. So yeah, thank you, Fokke. Good evening to you. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.